What if the first 2 minutes of your morning held the power to redirect the entire course of your day? Even your destiny? Before the phone rings, before messages demand your attention, before the noise of the world storms in, there exists a rare, almost sacred window of silence. In that fragile space, untouched and unclaimed, you face a decision. Will you surrender your mood to the chaos of the world? Or will you choose peace deliberately, like a sovereign claiming their throne? History reminds us that the greatest leaders often began their days with this kind of presence. In Japan, samurai warriors were trained to sit in silence at dawn, centering their breath before battle, knowing that one calm decision outweighed 100 frantic moves. Across the ocean, America's founding father Benjamin Franklin declared that the stillness of early hours shaped his wisdom more than politics ever could. In India, Mahatma Gandhi began his mornings with prayer and spinning, rituals that rooted him in simplicity even as he carried the weight of liberation on his shoulders. Buddhism tells us that the first breath we notice in the morning is not ordinary, it is a chance to step into mindfulness. The Buddha taught that peace begins when we are awake not just in body but in awareness. A short meditation at dawn, one hand on your heart, one deep inhale, one whispered mantra, becomes a reset button for the soul. Astrology echoes the same truth. Sunrise is when the sun, the ruler of vitality, breaks the horizon. It's the daily rebirth of light, the cosmic reminder that beginnings matter. Ancient Egyptians worshipped Ra rising from the east. Chinese emperors aligned their rituals with dawn to harmonize with heaven. Even now, when you open your eyes at sunrise, you are synchronizing with that universal rhythm. So imagine this: the world is still, your breath steady, your mind uncluttered. In that silence, you choose who you will be. Will you let the outer world decide your inner world? Or will you take those first 2 minutes as your own? Because the truth is, if you master the silence of dawn, the storms of the day cannot shake you. On the screen, the words appear: 5 morning affirmations for peace sparkles. And with that, your journey begins. I am awake, I am breathing, and that's enough. At first glance, this affirmation feels disarmingly simple, almost childlike in its directness. Yet in these few words lies a radical philosophy of life. To say this aloud in the quiet of the morning is not to state the obvious but to reclaim what is most easily forgotten: the miracle of presence. In a society obsessed with productivity, constant achievement, and endless comparison, beginning the day by acknowledging that mere existence is already enough is an act of quiet rebellion. It is a choice to anchor your worth not in what you do, own, or prove, but in the undeniable fact that you are here, alive, conscious, breathing. Presence has always been at the heart of spiritual practice. In Buddhism, the breath is not merely a biological function but a doorway to awakening. The Buddha himself taught anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, as a primary method of meditation. By observing the inhale and the exhale, practitioners learn to tether the restless mind to the present moment. Modern neuroscience now confirms what monks in saffron robes have practiced for centuries: conscious breathing calms the nervous system, lowers cortisol, improves focus, and creates emotional balance. To begin the day with, I am breathing, is to begin with peace. Yet presence is the very thing we most often lose. Think about how most mornings begin in the modern world. The alarm buzzes, before the feet even touch the floor. The phone is in hand. And within seconds, emails, notifications, and news headlines pull the mind in 1,000 directions. Before the body has even arrived in the day, the mind is already running, anxious, replaying yesterday, fearing tomorrow. We live, but half asleep. We breathe, but unconsciously. We exist, but only as a bundle of worries, comparisons, and unfinished tasks. The Dalai Lama once remarked that modern man sacrifices health to make money, then sacrifices money to regain health, and dies without ever truly living. That is the tragedy of a life without presence. And this is not a problem limited to ordinary people. Even the most powerful leaders fall prey to it. Elon Musk, one of the most brilliant innovators of our era, has publicly admitted to working 100-hour weeks, sleeping on factory floors, and enduring near constant stress. His productivity is legendary, but even he has acknowledged the cost of living without pause. Contrast that with Warren Buffett, one of the wealthiest men alive, Who has famously defended his empty calendar and slow mornings? Buffett insists that the space to sit, think, and be present is not a waste of time but the very source of his clarity in decision-making. One life is fueled by relentless motion, the other by deliberate stillness. Both men are powerful, but their quality of life and depth of wisdom diverge sharply. Breathing, in this context, becomes more than biology, it becomes resistance. To breathe consciously is to take back ownership of your inner world. Nelson Mandela is perhaps one of the greatest examples of this truth. For 27 years, he endured imprisonment, often in harsh and humiliating conditions. And yet, Mandela emerged not broken but unshakably resilient. Fellow prisoners recalled how he cultivated calm in the midst of despair. His philosophy, summarized in his words, "I never lose. I either win or learn," reflects the inner discipline of a man who, even behind bars, never surrendered his presence. His breath became his anchor, his patience his shield. Barack Obama, too, spoke of the power of presence in his presidency. While facing global crises, he guarded his mornings carefully, dedicating time to exercise, reading, and quiet. He explained that if he did not set his own mindset in the morning, the day's demands would set it for him. To be awake, breathing, and grounded was not a luxury but a necessity for leading wisely. Steve Jobs had his own variation of this practice. Each morning he looked in the mirror and asked, "If today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do today?" That single question was his way of waking up not just physically but existentially. Anchoring himself in presence before the noise of the day began. The difference between living with presence and living without it is stark. Imagine two individuals. The first wakes up, scrolls through their phone, replays yesterday's mistakes, worries about tomorrow's obligations, and rushes into the day already burdened. Their body is present, but their mind is scattered. The second wakes up, places a hand on the chest, takes 3 slow breaths, and silently repeats, "I am awake, I am breathing, and that's enough." The external circumstances may be identical, traffic jams, deadlines, unexpected problems, but the inner landscape is transformed. One reacts with tension, the other responds with clarity. One is consumed by stress, the other anchored in calm. Presence does not eliminate life's challenges, but it changes how we meet them. It is the difference between drowning in chaos and navigating with steady hands. Consider Angela Merkel, Germany's long-serving chancellor. She was often described as calm, unflappable, even in the face of intense political storms. Journalists and colleagues alike noted that her power came not from fiery speeches but from her steady presence. In moments when others panicked, she remained grounded, breathing, deliberate. True authority often arises not from force but from presence. But how do we practice this in daily life? The beauty of this affirmation is that it requires no equipment, no elaborate ritual, only intention. Upon waking, before reaching for the phone, sit up slowly, place a hand on your heart, and take 3 deep breaths. Whisper the affirmation softly, "I am awake, I am breathing, and that's enough." During the day, before entering a stressful meeting, pause for 1 breath. Say silently, "I am here." When stress tightens the jaw or quickens the breath, stop, inhale deeply, and repeat the affirmation. At night, before sleep, reflect with gratitude, "I was awake today. I was breathing, and that was enough." In these small pauses, presence is cultivated. The long-term impact is profound. Studies in psychology confirm that mindfulness practices lower chronic stress, improve immune function, and enhance resilience. Presence builds what executives call executive presence, that mysterious quality of calm authority that inspires trust. Leaders like the Dalai Lama embody this. His influence does not come from armies or wealth but from an aura of deep presence. Mahatma Gandhi lived by the same principle. Though he led one of the greatest political movements in history, he lived simply, spun his own clothes, and began his mornings with silence and prayer. His power was not in possessions but in presence. The conviction that simply being grounded in truth was enough to move nations. From an astrological perspective, the morning carries unique symbolism. The rising sun represents rebirth, vitality, and new beginnings. To wake up and breathe consciously is to align with the rhythm of the cosmos. Ancient traditions saw dawn as sacred, a moment when the veil between the physical and spiritual was thinnest. Benjamin Franklin championed early rising, claiming it brought health, wealth, and wisdom. Winston Churchill, though not an early riser, still insisted on a slow, deliberate morning ritual before tackling wartime decisions. The common thread across centuries is clear. Those who respect the sanctity of presence in the morning lead with greater clarity and strength. At the heart of this affirmation is the philosophy of enough. Human suffering often arises from tanha, craving, the endless thirst for more. We believe peace will come after the next achievement, the next purchase, the next milestone. But Buddhist wisdom teaches that peace is available now, in the very breath we are taking. To say, "That's enough," is not resignation but liberation. It is freedom from the tyranny of striving. It is the recognition that worthiness is not earned through performance but inherent in existence. This truth is what allowed Mandela to endure prison without losing hope. What gave Obama composure under global pressure? What inspired Gandhi to lead a movement through nonviolence? What makes the Dalai Lama a symbol of peace? Presence, expressed in the simple acknowledgement of breath and consciousness, is the wellspring of resilience and influence. To affirm, "I am awake, I am breathing, and that's enough," is to step outside the endless chase for validation. It is to begin the day not from lack but from abundance. It is to see that life itself, unembellished, is already a miracle, and from that foundation, everything else, work, ambition, relationships, flows with greater clarity, balance, and wisdom. Presence is not a luxury for the enlightened few, it is the birthright of all. It is available in every moment, as close as your next breath. I choose to be gentle with myself. At first, it sounds like a soft whisper, almost fragile in a world that worships toughness, discipline, and endless striving. Yet this affirmation, when lived fully, has the power to transform lives more profoundly than the loudest motivational slogans. To be gentle with oneself is not an act of indulgence but an act of courage. It requires turning against the cultural current that equates self-worth with constant productivity and perfection. It means choosing compassion where most of us instinctively choose criticism. And this choice, repeated each day, becomes the foundation of resilience, leadership, and peace. The irony of modern society is that while we have advanced technology, wealth, and education, we remain crueler to ourselves than to anyone else. Most people would never speak to a friend the way they speak to themselves internally. If a close friend forgot a meeting, we might say, "Don't worry, it happens." But when we forget, our inner critic shouts, "You're so stupid." If a loved one stumbled in a presentation, we'd comfort them, "You'll do better next time." Yet when we falter, the critic says, "You're a failure." This relentless harshness erodes confidence, creativity, and joy. The affirmation, "I choose to be gentle with myself," interrupts that pattern. It does not deny mistakes or imperfections, instead, it reframes them as part of being human. Gentleness is not the absence of standards, it is the presence of compassion alongside them. History gives us powerful reminders of how inner harshness can destroy or how inner gentleness can save. Take Winston Churchill, celebrated as Britain's indomitable wartime leader. Few figures in history carried such responsibility on their shoulders. Yet Churchill privately battled severe depression. His black dog, he demanded perfection from himself, believing he had to hold the weight of the free world alone. His harshness gave him drive, but it also nearly crushed him. His moments of reprieve came not through pushing harder, but through gentleness, painting, reading poetry, escaping to his garden. These quiet acts were not luxuries, they were survival. They gave him the inner space to keep leading when the world teetered on collapse. Or consider Abraham Lincoln, who bore the agony of leading America through its bloodiest war. Lincoln was haunted by melancholy his entire life. In his journals and letters, he often confessed deep self-doubt, even self-condemnation. Yet he practiced something akin to self-compassion by forgiving himself when decisions went wrong, reminding himself that mistakes were inevitable in a time of impossible choices. Without that gentleness, Lincoln could have drowned in despair. With it, he preserved enough strength to guide a fractured nation. In psychology, this pattern is well studied. Dr. Kristin Neff, the leading researcher on self-compassion, has shown that people who treat themselves kindly are not less motivated, they are more resilient. Harsh self-criticism may push us in the short term, but it leads to burnout, anxiety, and paralysis. Gentleness, paradoxically, gives us the safety to take risks, the courage to fail, and the persistence to keep going. When we say, "I choose to be gentle with myself," we are not lowering the bar. We are creating the inner conditions necessary to reach it without destroying ourselves in the process. Even world leaders understand this truth. Barack Obama, during his presidency, faced constant criticism, some fair, some viciously unfair. Every decision he made was dissected by the media, judged by history in real time. Imagine the weight of that pressure. Yet Obama often spoke about patience, not only with others but with himself. He knew he would not always get things right. He knew mistakes were inevitable. The choice was whether to crucify himself for them or to learn, adjust, and keep leading. Self-compassion allowed him to remain steady, to stay in the fight without being consumed by it. This principle is not limited to politics. In business, Warren Buffett is a living example of self-compassion applied to leadership. Over decades, he has made investment mistakes worth billions of dollars. But Buffett does not hide from them or beat himself up endlessly. Instead, he speaks about them openly. Sometimes even with humor. He treats mistakes as tuition paid to the market. Lessons rather than life sentences. This attitude has allowed him to keep investing boldly. To keep learning at an age when most people retreat. His gentleness with himself is not weakness, it is a strategy for longevity. Contrast that with Steve Jobs. A man of unparalleled vision, but also notorious self-criticism. Jobs drove himself and those around him with ruthless intensity. His perfectionism created extraordinary products but also immense suffering. In his later years, as he faced mortality, his tone softened. In his famous Stanford commencement speech, he spoke about the importance of following one's heart, of forgiving oneself for failures, of living fully while alive. It was a glimpse of gentleness from a man who had spent much of his life demanding too much of himself. That late recognition does not diminish his achievements, but it reminds us that even the greatest innovators pay a price for inner harshness. And they too crave the relief of compassion. Buddhism has always known what modern psychology now confirms: compassion begins at home. The Buddha taught that we cannot pour from an empty vessel. To offer kindness to others, we must cultivate it inwardly. That is why metta meditation starts not with wishing peace to the world, but with wishing peace to oneself. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I live with ease. Only then does the circle expand outward, to loved ones, strangers, even enemies. Gentleness toward oneself is not selfish. It is the soil from which compassion for others grows. Think of Nelson Mandela again. After nearly 3 decades in prison, he could have emerged hardened, bitter, consumed by anger at his captors. Instead, he forgave. That forgiveness, however, did not appear magically in 1990. It was cultivated day after day in a cell. Through inner practices of patience and self-compassion, Mandela forgave himself for moments of weakness, for his anger, for his doubts. That gentleness preserved his humanity so he could extend it to others. Without it, he might have been released physically free but internally chained. His gentleness with himself was the seed of his gentleness with the nation. Self-compassion also reshapes the way leaders are perceived. Angela Merkel, for example, was often described as calm, patient, and steady. In high-stakes negotiations, when tempers flared, she would pause, breathe, and respond deliberately. Colleagues noted that she rarely reacted impulsively, nor did she drown in self-blame when things went wrong. This demeanor made her one of the most respected leaders of her era. That composure came not from perfection, but from practiced gentleness, a refusal to attack herself under pressure. The benefits of self-compassion extend beyond leadership into daily life. When we stop waging war against ourselves, we gain energy to create, connect, and contribute. Harshness drains, gentleness replenishes. Studies show that people who practice self-compassion sleep better, recover from setbacks faster, and have healthier relationships. Imagine the impact if more of us began our mornings with, "I choose to be gentle with myself." Instead of starting the day with self-criticism, we would start with care. That shift in tone would ripple outward into every interaction. Practical ways to embody this affirmation are surprisingly simple yet profound. The next time you make a mistake, pause before the critic takes over. Instead of saying, "I'm so stupid," try, "I'm learning." When you feel overwhelmed, place a hand on your chest. Close your eyes, and imagine a soft light wrapping around you. Visualize it like a comforting blanket. Write one line each morning: "Today I will meet myself with patience." When a harsh thought arises, ask, "Would I speak this way to someone I love?" If not, change the script. These practices are small, but repeated daily, they rewire the brain. Neuroscience shows that the more we practice self-compassion, the more natural it becomes. What once felt awkward, being kind to ourselves, becomes second nature. Jacinda Ardern, former Prime Minister of New Zealand, embodied this in real time. Faced with crises that would overwhelm most leaders, a terrorist attack, a pandemic, she responded with strength and empathy. She showed emotion publicly, even vulnerability, yet she did not punish herself for it. Instead, she framed it as humanity. By being gentle with herself, she gave permission for an entire nation to embrace compassion over cruelty. Her leadership became a global model not because she was flawless, but because she was gentle. From a spiritual perspective, gentleness aligns with the energy of the moon. The moon looks soft in the night sky, but it moves oceans. Its power is quiet yet unstoppable. In the same way, gentleness may look soft, but it reshapes lives. It shifts the tides of our emotions, our relationships, our destinies. To choose gentleness is to align with that lunar rhythm, reflective, nurturing, and profoundly influential. Philosophically, "I choose to be gentle with myself" dismantles one of humanity's greatest illusions, that harshness is strength and gentleness is weakness. In reality, harshness is brittle, easily shattered by failure. Gentleness is flexible, resilient, able to bend without breaking. Leaders who embody this truth, Mandela, Gandhi, Merkel, Ardern, demonstrate that true power lies not in domination but in compassion. They remind us that the gentleness we offer ourselves becomes the gentleness we offer the world. In the end, this affirmation is not just about self-care. It is about survival. Without gentleness, we collapse under the weight of our own expectations. With gentleness, we rise, not perfectly, but authentically. We lead not from fear of failure but from love of humanity. Beginning with our own, and perhaps the most revolutionary act any of us can take, in a world addicted to harshness, is simply to wake up each day and say, with conviction, "I choose to be gentle with myself. I decide how I feel. No one else controls my peace." This affirmation is a declaration of sovereignty over the most intimate territory we possess, our inner world. It sounds straightforward, but living it requires immense courage, awareness, and discipline. Human beings often hand over their emotional power to external circumstances. A rude comment can ruin an afternoon. A missed deadline can unravel self-worth. A disagreement can linger in the mind for days. The truth embedded in this affirmation is that peace is never stolen from us. It is surrendered when we allow outer turbulence to dictate our inner climate. This principle echoes across spiritual traditions. In Buddhism, suffering arises not from external events but from how the mind relates to them. The Buddha taught that while we cannot prevent the winds of life from blowing, we can train the sails of our mind to navigate them. Stoic philosophers expressed the same truth centuries later. Epictetus famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." To embody this affirmation is to understand that emotional freedom is not given by others, nor taken away, it is chosen, moment by moment. Modern life, however, constantly tempts us to forget this. Social media alone has turned emotional outsourcing into an epidemic. A single negative comment can trigger anger, shame, or anxiety, while hundreds of likes can inflate temporary happiness. But both reactions give power to external sources. True emotional freedom means anchoring in a deeper truth. My peace begins within me. I will not give it away today. Consider world leaders who exemplify this. Barack Obama, during his presidency, was often described as no drama Obama. even amid crises like the 2008 financial collapse or international conflicts. His demeanor was calm, deliberate, rarely reactive. Critics saw it as aloofness, but supporters recognized it as emotional mastery. He understood that reacting with anger or panic would only inflame already volatile situations. By deciding how to feel, by holding on to inner steadiness, he projected stability to an anxious world. His peace became a resource not only for himself but for millions watching. Contrast that with leaders whose volatility dictates their politics. History is full of rulers undone by their inability to control emotional impulses. Anger has launched wars. Pride has collapsed empires. Insecurity has destroyed alliances. Emotional slavery to external provocation has been one of humanity's most expensive mistakes. Angela Merkel, on the other hand, was known for her patience and composure. Colleagues often remarked that she could sit through hours of heated negotiations without raising her voice. Even when others shouted or stormed out, her ability to keep her inner equilibrium allowed her to broker deals and maintain trust. Emotional freedom is not passivity, it is strength under fire. It is choosing clarity when others choose chaos. Nelson Mandela's example is even more profound. Imprisoned for nearly 3 decades, stripped of freedom, humiliated, and subjected to injustice, he refused to let hatred dominate his inner life. Upon his release, he famously said, "As I walked out the door toward the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I'd still be in prison." This is the essence of the affirmation, deciding how to feel even when circumstances scream otherwise. His captors could confine his body, but they could not control his peace unless he surrendered it. He refused, and that refusal became the foundation of reconciliation for an entire nation. This affirmation also has roots in neuroscience. The amygdala, the brain's fear center, reacts instantly to threats, while the prefrontal cortex allows for deliberate choice. Mindfulness practices strengthen the prefrontal cortex's ability to override impulsive reactions. Breathing, as simple as it seems, interrupts the stress response. By inhaling deeply and repeating, "My peace is mine to protect," we shift from automatic reaction to conscious choice. Science validates what sages intuited. Peace is not a byproduct of circumstances but a muscle built through awareness. Look at Mahatma Gandhi. British oppression was designed to provoke anger and violence. Yet Gandhi insisted on nonviolence. Ahimsa. His philosophy was not naive passivity but emotional sovereignty. "Nobody can hurt me without my permission," he said. That single sentence could be the sibling of this affirmation. Gandhi refused to let colonial power dictate his inner state. By holding on to peace, he turned weakness into strength, inspiring millions to follow him without raising a sword. In daily life, practicing this affirmation is both simple and challenging. Imagine driving to work and someone cuts you off in traffic. Instinct might urge anger, honking, shouting, but in that moment, you can pause, inhale, and silently say, "I decide how I feel. No one else controls my peace." The external event remains, but the emotional damage does not. Or imagine a meeting where a colleague criticizes your idea harshly. Instead of spiraling into defensiveness, you pause, breathe, and remember, peace is your responsibility. By responding calmly, you not only protect yourself but often disarm the aggressor. Emotional freedom is not about ignoring problems or pretending to be happy. It is about recognizing that external chaos need not dictate internal calm. Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, articulated it with unmatched clarity. Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. This space is what the affirmation trains us to access. By deciding how to feel, we expand that space, turning automatic reaction into intentional response. Astrologically, this affirmation resonates with the symbolism of Saturn, the planet of discipline and boundaries. Saturn teaches that freedom is not the absence of limits but the mastery of them. Emotional freedom arises not when life stops being difficult but when we learn to remain grounded despite the storms. Just as the sun rises each morning regardless of human affairs, so too can we rise each day choosing peace regardless of outer noise. Think also of Winston Churchill during World War II. Known for his fiery speeches, He was nevertheless deliberate about when to show fire and when to project calm. He understood that in times of crisis, the emotional state of a leader becomes contagious. If he panicked, the nation would panic. If he steadied himself, the nation could endure. His deliberate control of inner response exemplified this affirmation in action. No external chaos dictated his inner poise. In the business world, Jeff Bezos once remarked that one of the most important traits of leadership is being calm under pressure. He explained that decision-making improves only when emotions are balanced, not frantic. Again, this reflects the truth. Emotional freedom is not about suppressing feelings but about choosing not to be controlled by them. Practicing this affirmation over time reshapes identity. Instead of being someone tossed around by every criticism, every rude glance, every unexpected delay, you become the kind of person whose peace is unshakable. Others begin to notice. They lean on you during chaos because your calm steadies them. Emotional freedom is not selfish, it radiates outward, calming environments, diffusing conflict, and inspiring confidence. Buddhist philosophy frames this as non-attachment. When we stop clinging to the idea that others must treat us a certain way for us to feel at peace, we liberate ourselves. Peace becomes internal property, not external currency. Nobody can buy it, steal it, or bargain for it. Only you decide whether to hand it away. Even in family life, this affirmation transforms relationships. Parents who model emotional freedom teach children resilience. Instead of snapping at kids for small mistakes, a parent who breathes, pauses, and responds calmly demonstrates that peace is chosen. Spouses who refuse to escalate arguments create homes where love outshines ego. Emotional freedom at the individual level becomes harmony at the collective level. Over time, saying, "I decide how I feel. No one else controls my peace," rewires the mind. It creates a habit of reclaiming energy. Instead of being drained by every external storm, you hold your center. And the paradox is this: when you stop letting others dictate your emotions, you also stop trying to control theirs. You no longer need the world to behave perfectly for you to be at peace. That acceptance itself is liberation. This is why Mandela forgave his jailers. Why Gandhi faced violence with nonviolence. Why Obama projected calm during crises. Why Merkel brokered peace with patience. They each understood that emotional freedom is not a passive gift but an active choice. It is the daily practice of sovereignty over the self. I decide how I feel. No one else controls my peace. Repeat it in the morning. Breathe it during conflict. Whisper it at night. With time, it ceases to be a phrase and becomes a way of being. Your peace is yours. Guard it. Protect it. Live from it. Today I choose to be a source of calm energy. This affirmation carries with it a sense of quiet power. A declaration that one's presence itself can shape the world. Unlike affirmations that focus solely on inner stability, this one emphasizes the ripple effect of peace. It is not enough to guard calmness privately. True mindfulness blossoms when inner serenity radiates outward. Touching family, colleagues, communities, and even strangers, the affirmation recognizes that emotional energy is contagious. Just as anger spreads quickly, so too does calmness. To embody this truth is to become a living lantern, an inner flame of peace that brightens the environment without demanding attention. Human history offers many striking examples of leaders whose presence stabilized entire nations simply because they embodied calm energy. Consider Mahatma Gandhi. His insistence on nonviolence was not passive weakness but an active radiance of calm. He would walk into crowds facing police batons and bullets without raising his voice. And yet his steadiness dissolved fear in millions. Gandhi's calm was not just for himself, it was a signal to his people. We will not be moved by chaos. His presence became a collective shield, empowering others to stand firm without hatred. In more recent history, Angela Merkel provides a modern example of calm as leadership. During the European debt crisis, the refugee crisis, and Brexit negotiations, she was consistently described as steady and deliberate. While other politicians reacted emotionally, Merkel's tone rarely wavered. She listened more than she spoke, paused more than she rushed. That restraint projected stability not only to Germany but to the European Union as a whole. Her calm was not passive but a strategic force that reassured markets. citizens, and allies. By choosing calm each day, she created a climate where rational dialogue was possible. The power of this affirmation also emerges vividly in Barack Obama's presidency. In the aftermath of tragedies such as mass shootings, natural disasters, or terrorist attacks, he was often called upon to address a grieving nation. Observers noted how his tone, soft, measured, compassionate, became a balm for millions. He did not eliminate pain, but he absorbed some of the collective anxiety by embodying calm. His speeches often began with silence, a pause that allowed him to align with the emotional weight of the moment. That pause itself communicated, "I will not rush. I am here with you. We can breathe together." Calm energy, then, is not only for meditation rooms, it is for war rooms, boardrooms, and classrooms. The CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, has repeatedly emphasized empathy and calm leadership as core to transforming the company's culture. When he took over, Microsoft was known for its internal rivalries and aggressive competitiveness. Nadella's quiet yet firm presence shifted the culture toward collaboration and resilience. His calmness was not a lack of drive, it was an intentional strategy that allowed innovation to flourish in a more humane environment. Science confirms why this works. Neuroscience shows that emotions are contagious through mirror neurons. When someone enters a room radiating stress, others unconsciously pick up that stress, heart rates rise collectively. Conversely, when someone exudes calm, their slower breathing and relaxed tone can synchronize others' nervous systems. This is why leaders who embody calm energy are trusted in crises. Their presence literally helps regulate the biology of those around them. The affirmation becomes powerful when practiced intentionally in daily life. Imagine a parent in the morning rush. Children anxious about school, time slipping away. One option is to yell, escalating the tension. Another is to pause, breathe, and quietly repeat, "Today I choose to be a source of calm energy." Speaking with gentleness, even under time pressure, sets a tone that carries through the day for the entire family. The choice of one individual reshapes the experience of many. This truth extends to workplaces. In meetings where tempers rise, the calm participant becomes the anchor. Instead of reacting to aggression, they breathe, soften their tone, and ask clarifying questions. This de-escalates conflict, allowing productivity to resume. Over time, such individuals become trusted voices, not because they dominate but because they steady. Emotional calmness becomes professional capital. Nelson Mandela again offers one of the most profound case studies. When he emerged from prison after 27 years, South Africa teetered on the edge of civil war. Many expected him to retaliate, to unleash anger, to mirror the aggression he had endured. Instead, he projected reconciliation. His calmness during speeches, his measured tone in negotiations, prevented the country from fracturing. He famously invited his former prison guards to his inauguration, a gesture that embodied calm so profoundly it disarmed potential enemies. His personal serenity became a national stabilizer. Calm energy is not naivete. It does not mean ignoring injustice or suppressing emotions. Rather, it means channeling emotion with clarity and compassion. The Dalai Lama often laughs during interviews, even when discussing serious issues like the Tibetan struggle. His calm joy does not trivialize suffering, it shows that inner peace can coexist with outer challenges. By choosing calm, he prevents hatred from poisoning his cause. Astrology offers a symbolic lens here. The heart center, often linked with the sun, radiates energy just as the sun radiates light. When we visualize a lantern glowing in the chest, as this affirmation suggests, we align with cosmic archetypes of radiance. Calm energy is solar energy, it warms, it nurtures, it sustains, without demanding applause. The choice to radiate calm each morning is like choosing to be the sun for your environment, regardless of storms in the sky. This affirmation also intersects with psychology's concept of emotional contagion. Studies show that group performance correlates more strongly with the emotional tone of its leader than with technical skill alone. Calm leaders improve collective performance by stabilizing group emotions. This has been observed in military units, sports teams, and corporations alike. Choosing calm each day is not only spiritual discipline but strategic advantage. The importance of this choice becomes clear when contrasted with leaders who failed to master their emotional presence. History remembers figures who lost tempers publicly, whose volatility undermined credibility, whose inability to project calm cost them allies. In contrast, those who managed to embody calm, whether Gandhi, Mandela, Merkel, or Obama, left legacies of steadiness. Calmness does not erase flaws, but it magnifies trust. Daily practice begins with awareness. Upon waking, before rushing into tasks, visualizing a lantern of calm in the heart can anchor intention. Breathing into that light, silently affirming, "Today I choose to be a source of calm energy," sets a tone that shapes every encounter. During the day, when irritation arises, traffic, criticism, delays, the visualization can return. Calm energy spreads not by preaching but by being. Others feel it in your tone, your gestures, your patience. This is why calm individuals often become mediators in families, workplaces, and politics. Their presence is a balm in conflict. They remind others, even unconsciously, that another way is possible. Just as anger fuels anger, calm fuels calm. By choosing to be a source of calm energy, you become part of a healing chain reaction. When practiced consistently, this affirmation transforms identity. You cease to be just a seeker of peace, you become a transmitter of it. Your energy becomes medicinal. People leave your presence lighter, steadier, more hopeful, and you yourself feel stronger. Because calm energy does not drain, it replenishes. Unlike anger, which burns, calmness glows steadily, sustaining both giver and receiver. Leaders across fields have demonstrated this. Satya Nadella reshaped Microsoft with empathy. Merkel steadied Europe with patience. Obama comforted nations with composure. Mandela reconciled enemies with serenity. Gandhi mobilized millions with quiet strength. Each, in their own way, embodied the affirmation, "Today I choose to be a source of calm energy." Their calmness was not accidental, it was chosen, practiced, embodied. To live this affirmation is to accept responsibility for the atmosphere you create. It is to recognize that every room you enter is shaped by your presence. That your energy is never neutral. It either adds to the storm or steadies it. By choosing calm intentionally, you not only guard your own peace but multiply it for others. This is why the affirmation matters. Peace begins within, but it fulfills its purpose when it radiates outward. Today I choose to be a source of calm energy. Whisper it each morning. Breathe it in tense moments. Visualize the lantern in your chest. Practice it in words, in silence, in gestures. Over time, you will notice the ripple. Family mornings less frantic, meetings less combative, communities more trusting. The world may not thank you directly, but it will feel lighter because of your choice. And that, perhaps, is the highest form of leadership, influencing not through force, but through presence. All that I seek resides within me. This affirmation is deceptively simple, but it challenges one of the deepest illusions that drives modern life, the belief that fulfillment lies somewhere outside of us. From the moment we wake up, the world whispers that we are incomplete. Advertising convinces us we need more possessions. Social media convinces us we need more validation. Workplaces convince us we need more achievement. Every message points outward. This affirmation turns all of that inside out. It insists that strength, wisdom, compassion, and peace are not things to be hunted down in the external world but treasures already embedded within the human spirit. This principle is not new. The Buddha taught that craving, or tanha, is the root of suffering. We chase after wealth, status, and approval, imagining that they will finally complete us. But each acquisition only leads to more desire. The cycle is endless because the pursuit is misdirected. Instead of digging within, we keep searching outside. The truth of this affirmation is that we are not broken beings in need of repair but whole beings in need of remembering. Consider Nelson Mandela again. After nearly 3 decades of imprisonment, he emerged not as a man shattered by injustice but as a leader rooted in dignity and forgiveness. Where did that resilience come from? Not from external conditions, he had none of those in prison. It came from within. He drew upon inner reservoirs of courage and compassion that no captor could strip away. His story is living proof that what we most need is not given by circumstances but uncovered within the self. Barack Obama, reflecting on his presidency, often spoke about the importance of grounding himself in quiet reflection, even while carrying immense responsibility. He explained that leaders cannot constantly seek validation from polls or public approval, they must have an internal compass. Without that inner clarity, they become reactive, chasing approval rather than leading with principle. His calm confidence was not borrowed from external applause, it radiated from an inner source. Mahatma Gandhi lived by this same truth. He once said, "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others." He understood that true strength is not acquired from external power structures but drawn from inner wholeness. From the moral clarity and compassion that already reside in the human heart. Gandhi's lifestyle, spinning his own clothes, living simply, was not just a political statement but a daily reminder that sufficiency comes from within, not from possessions. Science supports this idea too. Positive psychology emphasizes that lasting well-being is built on intrinsic values, meaning, connection, growth, rather than extrinsic ones like money and fame. Studies show that beyond a certain point, external achievements add little to happiness. Instead, practices like gratitude, compassion, and mindfulness, qualities we cultivate from within, correlate most strongly with fulfillment. When we affirm, "All that I seek resides within me," we align ourselves with what psychology calls intrinsic motivation, the drive that arises from our deepest values and passions. The imagery of the still lake is a powerful metaphor here. On the surface, the lake may be agitated by wind and rain, mirroring the turbulence of life. But in its depths, the water remains calm. Similarly, our minds may swirl with worry, fear, and desire, but beneath the surface lies a steady core, an awareness untouched by storms. The challenge is not to create that calm but to access it. Meditation, reflection, and affirmations are tools to descend beneath the surface waves and reconnect with that inner stillness. World leaders have understood this truth intuitively. Angela Merkel built a career not on charisma or flashy gestures but on steady inner conviction. She did not constantly seek attention but acted from a quiet strength that guided her through crises. Her power was not loud but grounded. Evidence that inner wholeness is often more influential than external show. This affirmation also resonates with the words of Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist. In his book Man's Search for Meaning, he wrote that everything can be taken from a person except the freedom to choose one's attitude in any given circumstance. Even in the most dehumanizing conditions, he discovered within himself meaning and strength that no external force could provide. His survival and his ability to help others came from realizing that all he sought, resilience, purpose, dignity, already lived inside him. Astrologically, this affirmation reflects the essence of the moon, symbol of the inner world, intuition, and hidden depths. Just as the moon influences tides while remaining constant, our inner wholeness quietly shapes the rhythms of our lives. To recognize that all we seek resides within us is to live in harmony with this cosmic truth, that the greatest treasures are internal, not external. Practical application of this affirmation begins with daily reminders. Each morning, instead of rushing to check messages or compare with others, sit quietly and place a hand over your heart. Repeat softly, "I am enough as I am. All that I seek resides within me." Throughout the day, when temptation arises to grasp for external validation, likes on a post, praise from a boss, another purchase, pause and ask, what part of me already holds what I'm looking for? Often, you will find that the validation, the strength, the clarity you seek is already alive within you. Leaders across industries demonstrate how this looks in practice. Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, often emphasizes empathy as a cornerstone of leadership. Empathy is not bought or granted by position, it arises from within. From a cultivated awareness of one's own humanity. By leaning into inner qualities rather than external aggression, Nadella transformed Microsoft's culture and revitalized its creativity. His leadership illustrates that the deepest resources, empathy, patience, vision, reside within, waiting to be tapped. In family life, this affirmation has profound effects. Parents who embody it model for children that worth is not measured by grades, appearances, or popularity, but by the kindness, creativity, and resilience already within them. Spouses who live by it free each other from the burden of constant validation. Creating relationships grounded not in neediness but in mutual abundance. Communities built around this principle foster collaboration rather than competition. The greatest trap of modern culture is the myth of incompleteness. It drives consumerism, burnout, and constant dissatisfaction. But the leaders and sages who have truly shifted history, Mandela, Gandhi, the Dalai Lama, Frankl, Merkel, Obama, each demonstrated the opposite. They did not wait for external perfection before acting with courage. They drew from inner wholeness to create outer change. Their strength was not imported, it was remembered. To affirm, "All that I seek resides within me," is to end the exhausting search for validation outside. It is to realize that peace, wisdom, compassion, and strength are not items on a shopping list but qualities of the soul. External achievements may enhance life, but they do not complete it. Completion is already given. When practiced consistently, this affirmation rewires identity. Instead of approaching the world as a beggar seeking scraps of worth, you approach as a wellspring overflowing with abundance. This shift transforms how you work, love, and lead. You stop chasing and start radiating. You stop needing the world to prove your value and begin offering your value to the world. That is the paradox. When you stop searching outside for wholeness, you discover within yourself the capacity to give endlessly. All that I seek resides within me. Say it in the morning as the sun rises. Say it when the storm of stress shakes the surface of your mind. Say it before sleep, letting the words sink into your heart like stones into a still lake. Over time, you will see that the affirmation is not wishful thinking but reality. The treasures you once searched for, strength, wisdom, compassion, were never missing. They were waiting for you to notice. As we close today's practice, take one last deep breath. Place your hand gently on your heart and remember, peace is not something you wait for, it's something you create. And it begins with you. If this journey brought you even a little clarity, a little stillness, I invite you to share it. Someone you know may be carrying a burden heavier than their shoulders can bear. By passing this practice on, you might just give them the reminder they need to breathe again. And if you haven't yet, join our community here at Dharma Veins by subscribing, so together we can keep building a sanctuary of calm in a restless world. Now I want to ask you, because your voice matters here. Right finger, which of these 5 morning affirmations spoke most deeply to your heart today? Right finger, and how do you see yourself practicing it tomorrow when life's storms begin to rise? Leave your reflections in the comments. Your story might become the lantern that lights someone else's path. Finally, let us extend our hearts beyond ourselves. In this moment, may we send compassion to all beings, those suffering from war, from disease, from natural disasters. May every child wake to safety. May every family find shelter. May every nation discover peace. Just as the Buddha taught, our prayers are not bound by borders. May our practice here ripple outward, like gentle waves across the ocean, carrying healing to a world in need. Until we meet again, breathe deeply, walk gently, and remember, you already carry within you everything you seek.